So, apples. Beautiful apples directly from the farmer. However, maybe they're not so beautiful. Maybe they're disgusting apples, actually. Is this disgusting? So I used to be really disgusted by things like that. Remember myself as a little kid, an apple like that, I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't agree to eat it completely. And I think people grow up and they still throw whole apples because of a little thingy like that. And farmers, because they need to survive in our economy, they will not sell it even, you know? So a lot of apples just go to waste because they're not completely perfect and beautiful. I heard that in some places in the world, there are places that there's a project in New York called, I think, Ugly Vegetables, for people who understand that this is not really bad. So for starters, what we can do is, of course, just cut the beautiful part. And it's perfect, perfect apple. So we can just eat a lot. Most of this apple is completely perfect. There's no reason why not to buy it or why not to sell it. And even with this little step, we already save a lot of food in the world. Right now, I think it's about between 40% and 50% of our produce, fruits and vegetables, are going to waste, either right from the start because the farmer will not sell it, or in the refrigerators of people where things get bad and people just throw them the moment they don't look perfect, or of course in restaurants or hotels where everything should be presented in the most perfect way and whole meals are being just thrown away. And there's even rules and laws that keep it that way, so that even people that want to save food cannot do it. So the law has to change, of course. But until then, we can do so much in our kitchens, other than even more than just separating the good parts and enjoying them. So one thing I discovered in CityTree is the option of making vinegar. And today we will talk about vinegar making, actually. But before we take this advanced step, it is worth it to think for a moment, what is happening here? Why is it disgusting? So this is actually fermentation, another type of fermentation. We talked in the cabbage episode about fermenting cabbage in water and salt. And this is another type of fermentation. Now, fermentation is a nice word that people use when they talk about wine making or even bread making. And there's another word that is used in other contexts, which is decay, right? Decaying, rottening, death. We're talking about death. And death is frightening to people. They don't want to be reminded of it. And those things remind us of death. Especially if there's larvae, right? We hate larvae. We're so scared of larvae. And it really, really is worth it to stop for a moment when we see larvae, take a deep breath, and think, why am I scared so much? And about larvae, we probably will meet it on camera at some point and talk about it more. At this point, I just want to still stay with the germs, the microorganisms that are everywhere around us. And what they do for a living is breaking down matter. So they see an opportunity when a fruit is hurt, probably by a bug, by a fruit bug. And then the fruit is a little hurt, and the germs have an opportunity to go in and start processing. And this process is actually the process of life. There's no death in nature. There's no death without life. So once there's death, immediately life comes to make new life out of it. And we will see it again and again and again when we will do the compost and we see it in the kitchen all the time. So instead of avoiding it and just trashing it away completely and not wanting to think about it, this is really, really good time. We have time, we're in the house, and maybe we even start to feel some food shortage because the markets are closed, or maybe our best store is closed right now. And we start, right now, we can really imagine how it will feel like and how it felt like when there were no supermarkets and food was not so abundant. And maybe it will be that way again. And maybe that's actually the experience of many people around the world right now. While we are still enjoying abundance, a lot of people in the world do not. And I think the key to change that is actually change the way people who have the abundance think about their riches, like all the things that they have access to. And the most important thing is food. So if we change the way we deal with our food, if we stop wasting it, not only we can change the whole world, we can the whole world in which a lot of people are poor and hungry, we can also change our diet and have very tasty and interesting foods around us, that we have a new connection. We will have a new connection to our food, and that's really important in itself. Next time you see something like that, maybe you'll have a few other ideas other than just throwing it away. So a few ideas to start with, and there will be more in this series. So after I took the perfect part and I will eat them, I look at this part and I check it. I actually am doing like that, right? And this is my compost bin. So first of all, when we do compost, even if we throw a whole fruit, it is still not going to waste. It is returning to the soil and making a rich soil from which we can grow more food. So it's really amazing. So the parts, now I'm starting to use the ability that I developed in CityTree in the past few years to really discern between moldy, bad, I'm not going to eat, fermenting, interesting, I'm going to smell it, maybe I'm going to even taste it. And then I find out that what's happening in this area, and I think the other apple will be a better example. So there is a little point here of mold that I can take out. Yeah, can take it out to the compost. And then there is fermented apple that is actually yummy. It's hard to imagine, I know, and I had to go through my own disgust in order to find how tasty it is. It required some spiritual work. Yesterday I went over many apples like that, and I took out all this fermented matter. And what I have here, I think, will pass as a gem. I mean, in terms of how it looks like. And if I will offer you a gem from this jar, I don't think you will say, "Oh, disgusting," right? It's a matter of context. And like now, it's in a jar. It's on a spoon. It's very soft. I didn't do anything. There's no cooking here or nothing. I let nature cook the apple for me, right? This is it. This is this stuff. Believe it or not, this is really, really tasty. So you can try it. If you're not there yet, I totally understand. It took me a few years. What you can really do is vinegar, and that's like, I think, a very easy transition to make from compost to vinegar. So to make vinegar, I take a jar, and now I will work with pomegranates, also moldy, and let's see what waits inside. So the mold, as I said, I cut out, and you can see it's really moldy. The mold is not good for us. How do you know mold? It's green, blue, black stuff. This I totally take out together with some of what is around it, and still there's mold. So I keep going until there's no more mold. Yeah, and this goes to the compost. Now I open my pomegranate. A little more, a little more. Sometimes there's not a lot left. But we always look for what is usable and try to make use of it. So I open it up. And first of all, there are some clearly very, very perfect bits here that I'm totally going to put in my plate for breakfast or lunch. It goes amazing. Pomegranate goes amazing with salads and also, of course, for breakfast. So actually, I discovered here some quite a good fruit that I can still eat. Yeah? This goes to the compost. However, I have another example from before. Here, there's this. They're very mushy, and if I smell it, it's alcoholic. So the vinegar making, the vinegar process has already started. So what happens, what makes a vinegar vinegar? Sugary stuff, and there's a lot of sugar in those pomegranate bits, I don't know how you call them. It gets hurt, like we said before. There's an entering for the germs to come. And the first germs to come are those who love sugar. And the germs who love sugar, they make alcohol. So all wine and fermented drinks, yeah, it's like alcoholic drinks, are made with yeast. So the germs who love sugar are the yeast. And the yeast are everywhere, and there are many, many, many kinds of yeast. So the yeast you buy in the supermarket is only one kind, the one that is most efficient in making bread. But in nature, there's endless kinds of yeast, and to make bread with all kinds of yeast is much better than the ones that are sold in the supermarket. Of course, it's called sourdough, and the same thing is happening here. I put there's no mold here. It just started to already ferment. There's many. I imagine all the yeast are having a feast here already, and I'm putting it in the jar. So when I have a jar like that standing in the kitchen to make the vinegar, all I have to do is to cover the fruit with some water. And so I'll have, cover it with water and then cover it with a cloth and put a rubber, so it's closed but not closed. So it's closed for the bugs, but the germs can still come in and out. And what's happening here is that the germs have their nice habitat, water, and they have a lot of food to eat. And they eat the sugar, they make the alcohol, and then the next wave of germs are coming, which are the ones that love the alcohol, and they make citric acid out of the alcohol. And that's the vinegar, all right? So now I will take vinegar that I made a month ago. After the jar is full of fruits and covered with water, we wait for a few weeks. We can call it 4 weeks, but nothing happens if we wait for more than that. And I use my sense of smell to understand if the vinegar is ready. And of course, I can also taste it. To get the final product, look how beautiful. It's like a very clear vinegar. This is a, I don't know, it just said it's vinegar. But here we have apple vinegar, and here we have mango vinegar. So you see, like each fruit gives us a different color. But they all are very rich with citric acid. that is great for our salad, especially when there's a shortage in lemons or when we just fell in love with vinegar. Like what happened to me is that I just started to put my homemade vinegar in every salad, and I just love it. So I take a container and I sift the vinegar to get the fruit out and to get only the liquid. Opa. And what we see here is very interesting. This is something that the germs created. We know people who make kombucha know this phenomena. It happens also in vinegar, not only in kombucha making. And we will talk about it in the next season. We will have a chapter about kombucha. And also this is kind of on the way there. And isn't that just disgusting? I mean, really, what am I touching here? So again, vinegar making is an amazing opportunity to meet our disgust and work with it. And ask ourselves questions about, hey, why am I so afraid? I mean, this is just like, yeah, germs made it. So when we learn about the world of microorganisms, we stop being so fearful of our environment. And part of that process is really touching their products and like building our confidence and intuition and knowledge. I mean, we have to have knowledge, some basic knowledge, but also some experience in the kitchen to really get to a more confident place. So this is how I get my vinegar. When I have that, I bottle it in bottles afterwards, the liquid, and the bottles just stand, and it takes some weeks before it becomes so nice and clear, right? All the some very, very tiny fruit remaining keeps sinking down. And on the top, I get this really beautiful vinegar that anybody will accept as beautiful and not disgusting at all, right? So I really recommend that you try it at home. One last bit of that is that what remains after it all sifts through, what remains is like fruit, fermented fruit mesh, right? It's like this, paste of fermented fruit, and this I will blend in a food processor and I will use for dishwashing. Completely radical and also disgusting for a lot of people who come to CityTree and they need to use fermented mango paste in order to clean food from dishes. So it's a complete like mind-boggling thing. But it does work, and it's one of my ways to challenge people's habits and patterns, and I will keep doing that. So I hope you were disgusted in this chapter, but also maybe you discovered something, and I hope you'll have fun playing with rotting foods and like discovering new things. And if you have questions, of course, we're here and we would love to hear from you. So thank you very much. And see you soon.